Sometimes my 2 months in the United States are spent peacefully, with no particular spiritual happening. Movement helps the power flow. When I give ordination initiation, this flow of silvery or golden power is gently enjoyed by the candidates. I use the word enjoy because receiving an electric shock in ordinary life is both painful and dangerous, but the life flow of the Melusina Kundalini energy is both inspiring and ecstatic. It illuminates one's whole mind and heart, bringing both together. This year matters were very different, both challenging and rewarding, unexpected and exalted, and who knows what the next years are going to bring. It began in the autumn of 2005 when I experienced a visitation at night from the dark goddess in black robes. This was early in September. I offered to go on my knees, but she forbade me this with the unmistakable clear words, "I am not an executioner." I wondered, when I sort of came to, why I'd offered to go on my knees, not my usual behaviour. What was this? The words are meaningless to me. Next day, the Hurricane Katrina hit, followed by the breaking of the sea walls later. I interpreted the words given as follows. I'd offered to go on my knees to the dark moon goddess who arranges the tides of all the oceans, for her to refrain from flooding New Orleans, which I love. She was the sea goddess Yamaya, Isis, the Morrigan. Her reply meant that she was not responsible for this disaster. It was due to human greed and folly. Why build one's home on a swamp? Why live on dunes along the Gulf of Mexico? Why build your civilization on slavery? Though even if you've given it up, poor there. Above all, why deny human culpability in causing global warming all over the world, leading to floods? But something happened. You see, I had myself experienced the lightning flash of Isis, some call it the lightning flash of Zeus, which illuminates one. But I didn't know what was going to happen about that, but it did become active in the United States in the millennium. That is, I received the lightning flash along with the inner golden sun at midnight. But the lightning flash only activated when I got to the States up the base of my spine, suddenly, quite different from ordinary Kundalini, more marked and, as it were, physical. And then, some weeks later, up the left side of my brain. I wondered why that was, because that's the intellectual side, and I thought I needed to be psychic or something. But anyway, that's what happened. But nothing else happened to anyone else except it all began to happen in the year 2005 in the United States. I won't use the names of members who experienced the goddess presence. I myself had seen this thing, but when the energies entered my body, the white light was in my head and the golden sun in my solar plexus. Now these phenomena were to occur during my American visit, an account of a full apparition of the goddess through this man of both mind and heart was seen by our priestess in Isis Oasis, and is given in our Isis CSAT magazine. During my stay at our Chicago Lyceum at Circle Sanctuary, this wonderful nature sanctuary, I gave a guided vision quest. And ever I remember reported an extraordinary happening. During the subsequent night, she had been awakened by a blinding flash of white light. She had held her upper arm across her face. It was so powerful. Then when she looked, she saw that this light formed a beautiful halo round the white figure of the goddess. The goddess embraced her, saying, "At last you have returned to me. Be prepared." Our member gathered that the words referred to what the Native Americans call the Great Awakening, what was to come upon us. I thought this was sufficient inspiration for my journey, but there came a similar experience in New York State. I presided over a Wiccan-style ceremony to welcome New York Wiccan visitors. So, I invented a rite on the spot, involving people circling a large magical cauldron 3 times, making a wish for all to hear. I noticed how serious the wishes were. Afterwards, one of the members of priesthood made this report. She was a lovely person, partly Native American Indian, a very beautiful character who loved animals, her horse. She said that during the ceremony she was nearly blinded by dazzling white light. This is different from the ordinary energy you feel but you can't see. This is something that is practically physical. It can't be physical because the other people in the circle did not see this. The goddess appeared before her and said clearly, "You are sacred." This had particular relevance for this priestess. The third occurrence of this white light was when I gave the accolade of the sword. The candidate for this next morning declared she had not slept all night. During the ceremony, when the sword touched her shoulders, a flash of brilliant white light touched the top of her head and descended like a sword right down through her body. It was very powerful indeed and very dazzling, and she could not sleep all night, and it certainly blessed her and made her feel that really the sword of light exists, not as a weapon, but as divine illumination. The fourth manifestation of the white light came when I was staying in Los Angeles. A priestess there told me that during the night a blinding flash of white light so dazzled her that she put her arm across her face. As no apparition appeared, she was worried that perhaps she'd sent the apparition away. What does all this mean? The in accounts of the apparitions of the Blessed Virgin Mary, the light and its alarming brilliance has often been recorded. Indeed, there's a case of blindness where one man complained to her about that he'd seen her and gone blind. He was a construction worker, and she restored his sight. My final visit was to spend 2 nights with the priestess in New Orleans. You'll know my house by the Blue Roof. Blue roofs are dotted all along the Gulf Coast of Mexico, where our centres are, to act as cover for damaged or destroyed roofs. I travelled around New Orleans through square miles of desolation that has been compared to bombed Dresden and Berlin. I saw the voodoo-looking orange hieroglyphs on doorways at date, and the number of dead within the house to be collected by ambulances. In a macabre way, I was told there had been sharks and alligators swimming down streets. Well, I still saw the 9-foot marks of water that had risen. I attended, as I usually do, to the Day of the Dead on the evening of the 1st of November. We gathered to honour the god of the dead, Zede. People around me prayed for people that they had lost and were turning to the lower spiritual guides for comfort. They are guardian angels and help those who suffer in this world and the next, usually have had human incarnations. A lady next to me was bewailing her family. It was during my 3rd edition of A Dame of Tara in New Orleans that the goddess came again. Our rite was conducted on Native American Indian lines. The candidate and I wore red warrior headbands, and her lover was a Native American Indian, assisting in the ceremony for this initiation of A Dame of Tara. I then presented them, I felt, with the blessing of the Isis wedding rite, which is a spiritual ceremony. This consists of a pair creating a solar sun between their hands, as Isis gave birth to Horus, the sun god, when Ra had died in the west. In other words, it's renewal, spiritual renewing. They then bestowed their blessings on the sun, spreading the divine rays of Ra to all. This had been performed at our FOI presentation at the Chicago Parliament of the world's religions in 1993. So the culmination of my USA experience balanced the dazzling white light of the higher spiritual power with this loving solar orb by this pair of members of the Order of Tara, and two priestesses present saw this. The silver star represents, roughly speaking, truth, the Sophia, and the golden sun, love, Hathor. The golden orb they saw was formed between the two hands, and this they sent forth to the world to bring love to us all. All that is shall be reborn